Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we're here after Derby have released their retain list. Now, we've been waiting a little while for this. We've been very excited. I have to admit, not many surprises there. I think everyone's staying who we expected to stay. Everyone's going who we kind of expected to go. But there's still quite a lot to talk about. A lot of players out the door. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we think that Derby have made the right decision. So, joining me tonight to talk through all things retain list, all things Derby. Firstly, we've got Jamie Page. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, I'm good. Still waiting for the Rams Talk retained list. I'm hopefully going to be in there. I know we've been having some conversations, Jake, and it seems like we're making progress. So, yeah, hopefully that comes out soon as well.
It does. You're asking for £1 a week, and I felt like that was quite a lot, for what you bring. So, I've got to really think about it before we put that contract on the table. And we've also got Nick Drewett. How you doing, Nick?
I'm all good, mate, and I'll take 50p.
That's more than the rest of us get, so you'll be in profit.
So yeah, all good, mate. It's been a bit of a boring couple of weeks with no football to talk about. So yeah, excited to have a bit of a natter.
Yeah, it really has. And it's nice for something to actually happen. We've had a lot of news over the last couple of days. We obviously found out that Kane Wilson was staying straight after the game. An extension was triggered in his contract after we stayed up on the final day. And Matt Clark's gone on to sign a new 3-year deal as well, which is huge. I think that was probably a maybe not a clause, but a bit of a gentleman's agreement when he signed his contract that he'd end up staying. But that looks a good deal. So we've got to talk about that. So anyone who hasn't seen the retain list, I don't know how you've missed it so far, but here it is in full. So departing at the moment is, firstly, you've got Tom Barkhuizen, obviously played a decent part in us getting up from League One. You've got Adam's favourite bloke, Sonny Bradley, who also departs, lost yesterday with Wickham. Midfielder Tyrese Forner, who was on loan at Salford City, alongside Connor Washington, who's been missing for, well, pretty much the entire season, but did play a role last season. Also, we've got Rohan Luthra, who actually had a really good loan spell at Spennymoor Town. He's done his job. He's covered us. Also, Jeff Hendrick, who picked up a calf injury with 3 or 4 games to go, so didn't feature. Eric Peters, who's got probably the smallest number of minutes pretty much of any Derby player ever. He played 1 minute off the bench. We had a look earlier. I think there's 1 or 2 other players in the last sort of 20 years that have matched that. So that's impressive in itself. And of course, striker Kamar Roof, who rivals him with about 20 minutes on the pitch. And he's been let go as well. Craig Forsyth and Liam Thompson have been offered new deals. I think we expected Fozzie. I think we expected Tomo. But do we think they're the right deals? So, Jamie, I want to come to you first and just talk about the main 4 players from our promotion winning team. I know Derby made a bit of a deal of that, and it is a big deal. It was our first promotion winning team in quite some time. Barkhuizen especially played a lot of games. Sonny Bradley towards the end of the season. Tyrese Forner played his part, especially with that goal or setting up that goal against Bristol Rovers at home. That was huge. And then Connor Washington, who scored a couple of important goals. I remember that one against Northampton, which turned out to be useful as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on those 4 departing?
Yeah, firstly, I absolutely love the graphic that the club put out. I thought that was really, really good, really classy. I think the only one that I'm a little bit upset about is Barkhuizen. I think he played more of a part than the other 3, in all honesty. Yes, it's right to part, but still feels a little bit sad to see him go. Ultimately, they're all League One and below players, in my opinion, and we're a championship club, so we need to be doing the right thing. We're obviously going to be freeing up some space in wages as well, because you've got to imagine Barkhuizen, Bradley especially, they're not going to be on pittance a week. They won't be on my wages here at Rams Talk. So, yeah, it's the right decision. No surprises, but I think that's John Eustace, and I'm happy with that. There's been no surprises in his tenure, really. Picking the same team, it feels like it's a thought out process rather than panicking. And the deals that are on the table to the 2, I'd have done exactly the same. So yeah, no questions from me, no concerns really.
I mean, Nick, let's start off with Tom Barkhuizen. Obviously, a big signing for Derby under Liam Rossini. He was one of the first signings that we made after administration. I remember the excitement when he came in. He scored in pre-season against Leicester. I really like Barkes, and I think under Rossini, he looked a real talent. He set a couple of goals up early on in our first season in League One, and he really impressed me. But it never quite worked out for him, did it, at Derby?
I think it was getting that consistent run for him, wasn't it? And he was a bit of a man for all seasons. I never had a problem with Barkes, and I thought he always did a steady job. Obviously, he played left, he played right, he played number 10 for a little bit. He started as a wing back when Warne came in, and he always seemed to do everything, without complaining, without pouting. It was just, I think last season he never really got a consistent run of games. This season he's been very, very in and little appearances here and there off the bench, but he especially goes with nothing but my best wishes. He was a decent servant. The other three, I'm sure they're nice enough blokes, but it was the right decision for them to go. It's probably the right decision for Barkhuizen to go. He's probably at this stage in his career, he's a good League One player, and he'll do somebody in that league a decent job for another couple of years.
Yeah, I think he will. I remember he played as a number 10 against Bristol Rovers away, and he looked unbelievably at the bar. He scored late on, and he looked like he'd hit form, and then he picked up that injury and was out for a couple of games. And I don't think he ever really regained his place in the team, did he? He started right at the start of this season, but never really found his way back in. But he did it double figures for goals and assists combined last season, which, considering he didn't start a huge amount of games, I thought was quite impressive. But yeah, he's a player that I think, people won't look back on that season and think, oh, Tom Barkhuizen, and he won't be one of the players that comes to mind, but he definitely played a part. And I think some of the 3 or 4-0 away batterings that we dished out over the couple of years in League One, he always seemed to pop up for the 3rd or the 4th in the 90-something minute, which he was certainly good at. Jamie, as I mentioned already, a man who Adam is desperately scared of, Sonny Bradley. I've heard he didn't come on this episode today, just in case he was watching. He went out on loan. I think he looked pretty out of his depth at the first half of the season. I don't think he's bad. You put balls in the box, he'll head it, he'll kick it, and he'll always put in a good shift in that regard. But he kept getting turned, he kept getting beat, and he just didn't have the legs, the pace for the Championship anymore. Make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And you're exactly right there. I think, look, he's not getting any younger. I think he's another decent League One player. He'll probably stay at Wycombe and probably be there next season for another go at trying to get out of the division. You can't put him in the same category for me as Langas, as Clark, as Nat Phillips, probably not Nelson either, to be quite honest. So yeah, if you're looking at that and you're thinking your 3rd, 4th, 5th choice, you're on X amount per week. And the thing is, he wants to be playing. All of these players, you're professional footballers, you want to be playing. You don't want to be sitting on a bench. You accept it when you're young because you're wanting to get a chance. You believe that you'll break through, but you don't want to be 20, late 20s, early 30s, sitting on a bench every week. Look at James Collins. He wanted to go and score goals, and he did that. So, yeah, I think it's the right decision to get rid of him. And again, look, he's another player that I wish well. I think he's a threat in the air in both boxes, but he did have that little red mist in the time to time. So I think he definitely needs to cut that out of his game. I don't know his disciplinary record at Wycombe. I haven't seen he's been sent off. So yeah, maybe he's curbed that a little bit.
Yeah, he was throwing players around in their playoff game in midweek, which made me laugh. He's not changed. But yeah, he's definitely, I think he'll end up at Wycombe, won't he? I think they'll want to keep him permanently. He's been a good signing for them, and I think he'll probably do well in League One, towards the top of League One next season. So let's hope he does that. Nick, Tyrese Forner, now he was a really weird one, because when Derby were first linked with him, Derby needed a holding midfielder, right? We needed someone who'd break up the play, win the ball back, and then have the quality to maybe play a ball forward, find someone else for the ball. They just needed someone in that middle who'd graft, who'd fight, because we didn't really have too much of that with Conor Hurahan, Max Bird, even Jason Knight to an extent when he was still here. He'll run around, but he's not a big combative presence. And we brought Forner in, and he looks quite exciting. First couple of games, he was beating players for fun. He'd win the ball back, but he seemed to very quickly lose his way. Paul Warne brought up the fact that he had some problems off the field. Obviously, we don't know what they are, but it seemed to have a big impact on him. He ended up going out on loan this season, I think he came off the bench against Blackburn on the first day of the season, and he ended up down in League Two with Salford. Seems to have done pretty well. Seems pretty happy over Instagram over Salford. Maybe he just needed a change of pace. He'd been at Forest, he'd been at Derby, East Midlands, ticked off, move on. I think maybe he just needs a new start.
I'd argue he didn't do very well at Salford. I went to watch Salford versus Notts County a couple of weeks back. Tyrese Forner was comfortably the fourth best of the four central midfielders on show. Absolutely comfortably. He was terrible. He just wasn't anything that we needed. I think he's better in a more advanced role. He got decent feet. He'd got pretty tricky feet in a tight space, but absolutely wasn't what we needed. I got the feeling he was a bit of an agent from Forest, coming to sabotage us. But yeah, one to forget, I think, and League Two might be his level. I wasn't impressed with him at League One level. Definitely not at the Championship. Another absolutely correct decision, I think. Again, hope the lad does well. Hope he solves his off-field problems. Everyone deserves the second chance. And yeah, if he can find his place at Salford or something, but yeah, absolutely not for Derby. For me, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think he was the right fit, was he? And I don't think Eustace. Well, you don't want players that don't want to be here, do you? So there's no point forcing someone to stay around, even if they've got potential to be better than they currently are. And the final one of the four, Jamie, is Connor Washington. Now, I remember when we signed him, you were a big hater. I remember at the time, big hater of Connor Washington. I was quite interested. I got tired of watching Collins run at 2 mile an hour through on goal and put it wide. And I thought, maybe we'll have someone run at 10 mile an hour and put it wide instead. And Washington did do that. When he came in, he had a bit of pace. He got in behind. In League One, I thought he genuinely looked dangerous. He broke the lines. He offered us something different. It's just the problem that he's had for a couple of years now is his legs seem to have failed him a little bit. He picked up a couple of injuries. He picked up that injury just before international duty and then went away with Northern Ireland, didn't he? And made it a lot worse and ended up out for a couple of months. And then he came back and then he picked up another injury. He just seemed to have problems everywhere, and he wasn't able to keep himself fit. During last season, apparently he was meant to go out on loan potentially in January, and then he picked up another injury, disappeared for the academy, who he'd played quite a few games for. I mean, it's safe to say that Connor Washington's not had much luck for Derby, but it's also not really worked out either.
No, and I think that was my thinking when he signed, that he'd had some previous spells out with injury. I just thought it was a typical Paul Warne signing when we signed him, to be quite honest, and that he signed players that would work hard, that were good professionals, and I don't doubt that. I think Connor Washington's probably got a career in the game. I think we'll see him pop up as a coach or a manager somewhere for sure. Feels like he's a real student of the game, and Paul Warne really liked that. But yeah, just wasn't the kind of signing that I wanted to see come through the door. It hasn't worked out. He's obviously had his issues with injuries. Does he retire? I don't know. I mean, he's not been linked with anyone.
He did put out that he was doing it. He put something like 13th pre-season or something like that. So I'd assume he's still going. Yeah.
He'll probably go somewhere and start banging in goals, and then he'll get a championship move, and he'll score against us in a game or something like that. That's not what normally happens. But yeah, look, again, it's the right decision. I don't expect he was on no money weekly. So again, it frees up some wages so that we can hopefully offer some good wages out to someone kind of coming in. But yeah, I wasn't mad about the signing, and I can't sit here and tell you that I was wrong about it. So I'm normally right, aren't I, Jake? Let's be honest. You can admit it.
I'll never admit that, and you know that.
Do any of them go to MK Dons, do we reckon?
Oh, Oh, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think Barkay's gonna drop
He's
that
that
far.
imaginative, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think Barkay's gonna drop that far. Bradley definitely won't. I don't think Fauna would want to move to Milton Keynes. And Washington, I don't know whether his and Warren's relationship's that good. You know, Warren came out a couple of times and kind of threw him under the bus a little bit towards the end of last season. So I don't know how good their relationship is now. So we'll see. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, would you? If
Absolutely not.
MK Dons, yeah, Colo, you come in, Wash, you come in, Waggle, come out of retirement, you know, bring the band back together. But that leads us on to the 4 players that played about 4 games between them. Rohan Luthra, who came in basically as third choice. He was just cover in case any of our other goalkeepers got injured. As I mentioned earlier, he had a really good loan with Spennymoor Town in the National League North. Really impressed at Spenny, which is good for his career. It means he's got a little bit of a foundation to build himself on. Jeff Hendrick, who was really unlucky with the calf injury, never managed to make an appearance on his return to Derby. Eric Peters, as I mentioned, had his 1 minute of unbelievable talent and football. He almost touched the ball at one point. And then Kamar Roof, who I think made a really good touch. Was it against Middlesbrough? Had a beautiful touch around the corner, and that was it. Picked up another injury, and it didn't quite work out. I mean, Nick, would you have kept any of the 4?
There's potential in a fit Kemar Roof at this level as the option striker. I'd never be advocating Kemar Roof as, you know, let's go into next season with him as the number 9, but maybe as the option striker, depending on his wages. You don't know. That's another one. He's a big name, isn't he? He's always commanded decent money, you've got to guess. The other 3, you know, Hendrick was a nostalgic signing. I think was it there more for being around the group and what he could give. There's probably a reason that he hasn't had a club for a year. Peters, again, I think was just around to provide some cover of a left-footed defender because we were desperate for that at the end of the season. I felt really sorry for Lothara when he got recalled the day after he'd got Spennymoor to the basically putting a man of the match performance and got them to the FA Trophy final.
Yeah,
and then didn't even get to play in it because he had to come and sit on our bench. When really, surely the academy keeper could have sat on the bench. But again, he knew what he was coming in for, and I'm sure he will find maybe a National League team to go and be a number 1 at. But no, doesn't really surprise me, other than maybe you could make an argument for Roof.
Jamie, what do you reckon, pal?
No, I don't think Roof for me. I think there's better, there's bigger, there's better out there, and I think that also blocks potentially Dosanjh Brown, who will be coming back, having a good pre-season. He probably needs a loan, in all honesty, but I'd much rather give Dosanjh Brown the chance in pre-season and through a John Eustace training camp to make a stake for a place on the bench for sure. But yeah, I'd be worried a little bit if we were signing Hendrick and signing Roof and potentially giving Peters another year. I think that just shows that potentially we're not going to be as active in the transfer market than we need to be. So yeah, no complaints from me.
Yeah, it was. I think I agree with you, Jamie. To be honest, I don't think any of them have done anything to warrant a deal. I mean, Nick, you said if fit, and that's the problem. Kimaru's not been fit for about 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would only advocate him, I say, as maybe a third choice, and then it comes down to money. I completely agree with Jamie that Dosanjh Brown deserves a chance. We're yet to see what Salverson is or is not, and hopefully we'll get another number 9 in. But yeah, I think it's sensible all in when you look at it in the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, Dosanjh Brown, for me, I think he's got a good future ahead of him. I don't know how high he can play. I don't know if he's not a championship level striker yet. I'd hope we can bring 2 or 3 strikers in and send him out on loan and let him develop because he's gaining nothing sitting on our bench. And I don't think he's at a level to be our second choice yet. You know, if you look to the bench and bring Brown on, you're not thinking, goals. You know, he's not going to come on and make a massive impact. I think that whole game where he scored that header, he did really well. But in a lot of other games, he came on and was pretty anonymous. I think he just needs that match experience and needs a little bit of time. So it'd be good if we can bring a few players in that could stay fit. That'd be good, wouldn't it? That'd make a nice change as well. Now, 2 players got offered new deals. We all knew Craig Forsyth was going to get offered a new deal, not just because him and John Hughes are good mates, because he played so well towards the end of last season. I mean, the guy just keeps getting better every year. You know, he gets a yard slower, but in his head, he gets a yard quicker. So it kind of balances itself out. I mean, Nick, it makes sense, doesn't it? Fozzie, he's got to stay.
This will be the 3rd time on this podcast that I have said the words, give Craig Forsyth a lifetime contract. If that transitions, I mean it in all seriousness, if that transitions into being a coach in a year, 2 years, whenever he feels fit. But you don't get 13 years at a club anymore, do you? That doesn't happen in modern, gone are the Gerrards, the Nevilles, the Scholes, the Gig, the players that stayed at. That's in our lifetime in Derby players. Yeah, he is. And you've just said it, he deserves a new contract. It's not even a nostalgic thing. He deserves it on his performances. Would you rather have Craig Forsyth as your centre-back than Sonny Bradley? I would. So, yeah, for me, give Fozzie as many years as he wants, get him into the coaching setup once he's finished. He's got a relationship with Eustace. It's got the potential to be a very special relationship, player and club, a sort of all-timer one, really.
Yeah, it really does. And Jamie, I know you're on Team Fozzie. I know you'll be well up for him coming back.
Yeah, for sure. But he deserves it. He really does. There was times in League One where he was potentially a bit of a weak link and teams would target him, and he did make the odd mistake in League One, but he's been, at the back end of this season, an absolute monster. He really has. I mean, the ball that he played in for Phillips' header, I keep watching it. And to be honest with you, I don't even need to see Phillips head it into the back of the net. I just watch it until it meets Phillips' head. Yeah, just watch the cross. And I absolutely love, if you watch Fozzie's reaction when Phillips puts it in the back of the net, that's what it means. This guy's Mr. Derby County. And okay, maybe he's not the most flamboyant, the most eccentric man off the pitch, but he absolutely loves the club. He's grown up here. He's brought his family into Derby. He deserves to get another year contract, but because he deserves it, not because he just refuses to not give up. Basically, he's definitely not an unflushable turd. He's the unflushable Fozzie, and we all love him.
That is the worst. That is the worst thing you've ever said on this podcast. That is horrendous. I actually hope we let him go now, just because of that. I hope he. I hope he goes. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Forsyth, he's got to stay. He's got to stay. He's just one of those players that, embodies Derby as a club, and deserves one more year. We're still going to say this in like 10 years' time. One more year. He's only got one leg. He's lost his knees. He's had 4 more ACL injuries. He's limping along, but his experience. He just plays such a huge part. Keep him in. And the other one is Liam Thompson. Tomo's a weird one for me because I think in League One he had a really good spell towards at the start of the season, and he looked really good. He came back. I don't think he was quite the same. And then start of this season, I thought Tomo looks miles out of it. And then he's come back into the team later on in the season, and he's looked decent, and he's played well. Nick, would you have kept Tomo?
I think I'd keep him as a squad player. Tomo, for me as well, it's all about the formation that we play. I worry slightly that in Eustace's 4-2-3-1, that there maybe isn't a place for Tomo. When you were playing, if you're playing 4-3-3 outright or the 5-3-2 that we're playing, I think he's perfect in that. That midfield at the end of last season must have been absolutely horrendous to play against. Ibu, Tomo, and Harrison Armstrong must have been horrendous to play against for other teams. Maybe shorn of a little bit of absolute stardust, but yeah, I think I'd give him another year around the squad. It's whether he, at 23, 24 now, is he? It's whether he wants to stay as a backup or whether he wants to go and forge his own path. Louis Sibley showed that grass isn't always greener, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, I think, because before I come to you, Jamie, I like Tomo, and from a selfish Derby perspective, I'd have kept him 100% because he's a good squad player. He can come in, he can play at wing back, he can play midfield. You know, he can play a couple of positions. You know what you're going to get. You know he's going to give you everything. He's got a little bit of ability on the ball as well. It's just from Tomo's perspective, because realistically, Derby are going to bring in better players this summer, aren't they? Derby are going to bring in better players, and Liam Thompson is not going to be starting games next season. And for his career at 23, you know, we've seen other players. Fauna, great example. You know, yes, Nick watched him once and said he was the worst player in the world, but he's gone out to Salford, and the Salford fans love him. You know, the Salford fans love him. They think he's a really good player, and he's gone out and he's forged a career, and he's possibly found a team going forwards where he's going to play a real part in them pushing towards the top of the division. Tomo, if he stays at Derby, I don't think he'll get the minutes, and I don't think he'll get the chance that he probably deserves to develop. And I want to see Tomo turn into a good either Championship or League One player, and I just don't think he's going to get that chance at Derby. I just can't see him getting that opportunity. And I feel bad because it is primarily because of his size, isn't it, realistically, that we'd struggle with him, because you need so much physicality in the middle to make up for the fact that you've got a 5'5" centre mid. And I think that's a really difficult thing. And we found it, didn't we, when we had him in the middle and when we had Osborne in the middle next to him. You know, we just had such a small midfield, and it was hard to deal with teams that were more physical. So I worry for Tomo if he stays at Derby that he's not going to develop like he probably deserves. But it would be nice to keep him around, wouldn't it? It's good to see him come on and chase some people around. And I like his cynical fouls as well. They're always funny whenever he drags someone back by the shorts or something like that. It's always quite entertaining. But Jamie, would you have kept Tomo?
It's one of those situations where I feel he is good enough, but it needs to be set up in a way that you allow him to do what he does best, and that is that ratty, really annoying stuff. And I think if we play Eustace's preferred 4, I think it's a 4-3-2-1 or some iteration of that, where do you have him in that? Because he's probably not a 10. Can you afford to have him in a deeper line 2, or that balance? If you're in a 2 is a lot different to if you're in a 3. And don't get me wrong, there's been times this season where I've come away thinking Tomo surprised me tonight. Like he was everywhere, and he's so good on the ball. He always seems to read the game really well. He struck up a really good relationship with obviously Harrison Armstrong at the back end of the last season. But you're exactly right. How many games is he going to play? And how many times is he going to have to start a pre-season knowing he's got to fight for his place and probably start on the bench? And then when someone gets injured, come in and try and keep his shirt. It just feels like he's not a nailed-on starter, and he's probably got clubs in his ear saying, look, come to us, you'll start every week, we'll develop you, we'll give you the tools that you need, we'll almost build a team around you. And when you've got your agent and clubs telling you that in your ear, it probably is enough to turn your head. It will be a shame because he's the last one of that academy side, isn't he? You think of Cashin, Bird, Knight, Delap, and all these wonderful players that come through our academy, and he is the last one that is yet to go. So it will feel weird if he does depart, but look, it's something that he needs to think about for the future. And again, if he goes, he gets our blessing as long as he doesn't come up against us. Yeah,
definitely. And there's also potential. Derby will be in for compensation if they've offered him a new deal and he goes elsewhere. So, there's even potential for that as well. If he's got a move already lined up, and it just means that Derby get fairly paid for his development, etc. as well. So you never know. But, if Tomo stays, brilliant. Really happy about that. Good squad player to have. Good player to have around the dressing room. Clearly a laugh. We've all seen the video of him after we went up. He seems a funny guy. And yeah, good guy to have around. But if not, it's good for him in his career, isn't it? If he can go to a place and nail down a spot and really play football to the best of his ability consistently, I think it'd be good for his career too. So we've also lost quite a lot of loan players, and a lot of them were pretty useful. Harrison Armstrong, Marcus Harness, David Ozo, Nat Phillips, Jerry Yates. Nick, looking at that list of 5 there, who would you keep? Who would you steer away from? Any that particularly impress you most?
Obviously Armstrong. I'd have Armstrong back in a heartbeat. But I think Moyes has already come out and said Armstrong is going to be around the Everton first team for their pre-season. He's going to be integrated within that. He's going to play a lot of games. They're going to assess him. He's going to be a late August if he can go out on loan. So we can't prepare anything for a pre-season with him, but I would have him back in a heartbeat. The others, for everything they did, I would thank them for their jobs and their time. I mean, Nat Phillips is the money for me. Nat Phillips on 65 grand a week. He is somebody that I see is going to a Southampton or a Leicester or an Ipswich that will be able to afford to pay him 45 grand a week. We're probably in the 20s at the absolute tops. David Ozo is clearly talented, but he's made of Weetabix, so there's no point in wasting a loan slot, I think, there. And Harness and Yates did very, very well together. But he's going to go one up front with his preferred system. Yates proved under Paul Warne that he's not a solo striker. And I think Harness's little purple patch doesn't do enough for him to come back for me. That's the assessment. Armstrong, absolutely. Phillips, if the money made sense, but I don't think it will. The other 3, Thanks for your time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all of them played a huge role. I mean, although what I would keep in mind is we're all assuming Eustace is going to play that system. We don't know if he will. Just because he's used it in the past, it doesn't mean he's going to use it again. So it'll be interesting to see what he does do going forwards. He might not find the players to play that system. He's already proven that he'll play the system that suits the team rather than trying to play a team to suit a system. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do know what you mean. If we play Yates up top on his own, he'll struggle like he would. I mean, for me, before I come to you, Jamie, Armstrong, obviously. Marcus Harness, I wouldn't. I think he came up with some really good moments, and we've got to be grateful for that. That Plymouth away game is probably the main one. His goal against Coventry as well was really, really important. But I just don't think he's. I mean, off the bench, he's a decent player, right? He's a decent player, but from what I've been told from an Ipswich guy I was on with the other day called Ross, who's really good. He does loads of stuff at East Anglian Times. He seems pretty convinced that Ipswich are going to trigger a 1-year extension that he's got in his contract, which means that if anyone wanted him, they'd have to buy him. And I don't think we'd want to buy Marcus Harness. I don't think it's worth the money. So I don't think Derby will go anywhere near him. David Ozo, like you said very well there, Nick, made of Weetabix. Clearly a talented player, but
massively.
Yeah, you can't rely on him. If we got him on loan again, I probably wouldn't be upset about it, but I'd be a little bit worried about it. I wouldn't really understand why we're doing that when we've seen, he played about 10 games in a season and he was a player we were relying on and it absolutely killed us when he got injured. So I probably wouldn't go for him. Nat Phillips, like you mentioned, it's all financial, isn't it? It's all financial, but I do think he's a quality player and he's got years in him. If we brought him in on as our highest earner, that's absolutely fine. The one thing for me is we've obviously got Sondra Langus. I don't know when he'll be back. We've obviously got Matt Clark as well. Maybe Craig Forsyth, if he signs the deal, he better do. Otherwise, I'll find him and make sure he does. we've got a couple of players in that position. And if he doesn't play a back three, suddenly you've got one of Sondre Langus, unless he plays at fullback, which I doubt he will do. But Langus, at centre back, you've got Matt Clark. You've got to leave one of them on the bench. There's a lot of players there that have real quality and are way too good to be sat on the bench at Derby. So for that reason, I probably wouldn't, like I said, unless the deal's right. Unless we know that Langus is going to be out for a long time, then I probably wouldn't do it. And yeah, Jerry Yates, he had a really decent season for us. I think he's gone under the radar a bit because he did miss a couple of open goals. He was quite good at missing open goals. His last touch in a Derby shirt was missing an open goal. But at the same time, he scored some really important goals as well. 10 goals in this team. He barely had a shot all season. He barely had a chance all season up until when Eustace came in with 12, 13 games to go. He could barely get a chance. He barely kicked a ball. Players wouldn't put the ball in the box for him. He could never receive the ball because we never created, and he's not big enough to win it from many set pieces. So we played a game that didn't really suit him. I think if we had Eustace all season, Jerry Yates would have comfortably at 15 goals, which is, a really good return in this league. So I wouldn't be against Jerry Yates coming back. Again, it's all financial. Swansea paid £2.5 million for him not too long ago. I wouldn't pay any more than £1 million for Jerry Yates, despite the fact that he scored a few goals. I think it'd be a lot of money to gamble on a player that may not necessarily, as you say, Nick, fit what we're trying to build. So, yeah, that's my long answer for a very simple question. Jamie, what's yours?
I'll just give a short answer, shall I? It's difficult with Yates for me because I agree. I'm very thankful for what he did. But I just think that he probably needs to play in a 2 and he definitely needs some more support. But he's such a tireless worker and he would definitely benefit any championship club, and he probably will benefit a championship club, whether that's Swansea or somebody else. But yeah, can't see us paying 2.5 million to get him through the door. So it would have to make sense financially. And I think that it'd have to be well thought out to try and get him in the team alongside another striker. With Harness, I agree. Yeah, thank you, but didn't really do enough. And yeah, doesn't fill me with delight that we'd have to pay a fee for him as well. And I probably wouldn't want him on a free. So that's Harness. Obviously, yeah, discussed Harrison Armstrong. I'd sign him tomorrow if we could. But again, we know that that's not going to be the case. Hopefully, we can find a player of his ilk or find another Premier League loan that does the same thing. I know, obviously, teams in this division have benefited from those Premier League loans. I think teams in the league below have benefited from Premier League loans. You've got Jamie Donnelly at Leyton Orient, who I think is really, really good, who potentially could be stepping up to the Championship next season. So, yeah, I think there's definitely players that we can bring in again on loan. I just hope we get it right, because if you look at the start of January or towards the end of January when we just signed Harrison Armstrong, what would you give our loan players out of 10? Maybe a 2, maybe a 1. I don't know. I think actually they got maybe up to a respectable 5 or 6. But if you want to be competing in this division, then you've got to make sure that your loan players are putting in better performances on the whole.
Nick?
Yeah, I've got a shout on a loan player, midfield of the Armstrong ilk. And it is because I watch an inordinate amount of Notts County, but they've had a lad called George Abbott from Spurs on loan. Genuine box-to-box midfielder, lighter than Armstrong, but I've never seen a lad get stuck in to massive blokes so much in League Two. Genuine quality on the ball, scored 4 goals, scored the League Two goal of the season this season, which was an absolute perler from a corner, volley from the edge of the area. If Spurs are going to be looking to loan him out again, but steps up from League Two, and I think he slots into the Championship. He's 19. That's my shout. If we can't get Armstrong, George Abbott from Spurs. You heard it here first.
I've got one as well. He's played a couple of games this season for Man City. He's kind of struggled with injuries a little bit. Available on a free. He's got a good left foot, good right foot, little bit of experience at the top level as well. De Bruyne, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's had a good couple of years at Man City, and he's available on a free. Might fancy Pride Park. You never know. He might fancy playing in front of fans that care. That'd make a big difference for him, maybe.
Hey, so... we got Wayne Rooney, so anything's possible, right?
It
and
is
Ashley
possible.
Cole.
Yeah, we've had and it bankrupted us. So maybe we don't do that. Kevin, do you fancy playing on 15k a week and playing next to Jackson Osborne every week? What do you fancy? Kevin? But right, that's been good. I've enjoyed this. It's good to talk through it. It's not as exciting as last year's, where we had like 5 first-team players leave. I think most of the players leaving we expected, didn't we? Players that were out on loan, players that were not really getting any minutes at all. And we've managed to keep hold of some of the most important players as well. Keeping Clark is huge. Keeping Wilson is huge. 2 massive players for us, especially towards the end of last season. So we can be excited. It's time to build. We now know what we've got. We can take stock. We can look at what we have. And now it's time to improve going forwards and hope that John Eustace and the team can bring in some really good players. We've got a bit of faith. They've built decent teams at Birmingham. They've built decent teams at Blackburn. Now they've got to do it at Derby. And I, for one, have a lot of faith that they'll get it right. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Let us know if you agree with us. Let us know if you disagree. If there's anyone you would have kept, let us know. If there's anyone you're glad we've let go, let us know. And if you've got any rogue shouts like Nick had of players that we could bring in next season, let us know and we'll steal all of them for when we do a signing episode. So comment them down below, and then like Jamie or Callum will claim it as their own or something like that. It's standard. So please do that. That'll be very useful. But no, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you joining us, especially in the off season. And it's goodbye from me.
Before I say goodbye, Jake is exactly the same, so he'll be stealing all of your shouts, and also mentioning strikers that have scored 60 goals in the Norwegian 3rd division or 4th division. So yeah, I look forward to that episode. It's goodbye from me.
Have a great summer, everybody. I will obviously be the most informed man in the world on League 2 players that we could get. It's goodbye from me.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in Austria. Have a great summer. We'll see you soon.